Hi, welcome back to Charlie Talk. I'm John Sonderegger. With me is Cynthia Davis and Scott Rupp. And when we were just talking about health care, and we were talking about the Senate being wimpy, and also the Democrats. You said the Republicans in the Senate are acting like Democrats. Scott, go ahead.
Well, I think what she was trying to say is that we're spending money in things like in Missouri, and started to call the Republicans in the Senate Democrats. The fact of the matter is Missouri is one of the most financially sound states in the nation. We're one of 6 states that still has its AAA bond rating. It means we're the safest place to put your money, one of only 6. We're in the top 10% of most fiscally sound. We have reduced the size of state government. Under Matt Blunt, when he was governor, it was the first time we dropped under 60,000 state employees for a very long time. We just had a budget that was given to us by the governor that was way out of balance. We had to reduce it in the Senate by $500 million, and we're continuing to make government smaller, more efficient, because we do have fiscal conservatives like myself. I'm on the Appropriations Committee, and we are cutting every single waste, fraud, and abuse we can find out of the state government. And you can tell by, we're not Illinois. Look at how bad Illinois is. They won't refuse to spend money. California, on brink of bankruptcy because they're continuing to spend money. Missouri has fiscal conservatives like myself in the state Senate, and we are practicing that like every family has to live within its means. We're doing the same thing, and we're one of the most financially sound states in the nation.
You said something there, it's a little bit surprising to me to talk about Jay Nixon's budget being so bloated. He's made an awful lot of cuts. In fact, he sounds an awful lot like a Republican, the way he's been cutting the budget. And I was just thinking, if somebody told me if Nixon had grown up in St. Charles County, he'd be a Republican, but he grew up in Jefferson County. How do you feel about that? Is he close to being a Republican?
Actually, I think our senator here is further to the left than Jay Nixon, because on the gambling budget item last year, we spent $1.3 million. But that wasn't enough for Jay Nixon. He thought we should triple it to $5 million, and that wasn't enough for Scott Rupp. He wanted to make it $8 million, and he won. So if that's getting results in a tight budget year, is doing 6 times the advertising budget for the lottery, I don't call that the right direction. In fact, why is it that when the budget was passed, it was $350 million out of whack? How is that balancing the budget?
So, I know, but he had to make those cuts to balance the budget. Jay did. I mean, he's been cutting left and right.
Well, thanks to our senator, because that allows Jay Nixon to be the one making those decisions, not the legislature. And the legislature is supposed to be the one allocating the money. So you explain to me why the senator can't balance the budget.
What kind of budget did you submit to the governor?
Well, the governor starts it off with the state of the state, and he submits the budget to the legislature. Okay. Then it goes to the Missouri House, and they vote on it. And the budget that they had worked on included $300 million of federal stimulus $2 that we knew would never come over. So when it came over to the Senate, not only did we have to say, well, Governor, your budget was $500 million out of balance by his own admission. So then we had to make up all the different reductions that the House had done, because they had planned on $300 million magically showing up. So we had to do a tremendous amount of work to really reduce, by $500, $600, $700 million the amount of the budget. And the revenues continued to decline. The governor said, I need $500 million cut from my budget. It's out of balance. We cut it. The legislature passed it, both House and the Senate. The revenues continued to drop. So the governor came out and said, I need to make another $350 million.
And he did that on his own.
And he did that on his own, because after the legislature passes the budget, it's up to the governor to implement it. So if revenues come back in, it carries over. If their revenues continue to fall, then they have to make a withhold, or basically saying, I'm not going to pay out the money that the legislature appropriated because it wasn't there.
Well, I'm just thinking about headlines in the paper, and Jay Nixon slashes $300 million, et cetera, and things like that. And I'm thinking, and without mainstream media bashing, if there had been a Republican governor, there would have been hell to pay. We would have had blunt trauma and all the rest of that stuff. I mean, Jay seems to be getting a free pass, I think, a lot.
Oh, he's getting a free pass. And if you go back under Matt Blunt and the decisions that both Cynthia and I made when we were there to stop the out-of-control spending, especially in certain areas of our budget, we were raked over the coals. You had the Blunt trauma. But we saw this coming. We saw the government was growing way too fast. It was spending too much money, and we made structural reforms to our welfare programs, and we reined in that out-of-control growth. If we had not done that under Matt Blunt and myself, under conservative fiscal leadership, we would be Illinois. We would be California. So the tough decisions that we made in 2005, that we got beat up over, that Matt Blunt, blunt trauma and those types of things, that's why we're fiscally sound now, because we saw this problem coming and we prepared for it because we exercised fiscal conservativity.
So what about that, how much money did you say it was, 800,000?
Well, the budget that
I'm
was.
talking about the budget for the lotto, the advertising of lotto.
Yeah, it was 1.3 million per year for the last 3 years in a row. And the governor recommended that be brought up to 5 million. And the Senate took it 3 million beyond that. So now the budget that the senator passed is 8 million. That's a 6 times as much as what it was last year. I don't care what you think. Balancing the budget on the back of poor people is not the right way to solve our problems.
I mean, getting poor people to buy lotto tickets.
Yes, they think we'll find a way to have more people play the lottery, which is like a tax increase on those who voluntarily play. But nevertheless, have you ever gone to a gas station and not known where you could go buy a lottery ticket?
I don't buy lottery tickets, so I don't know. Scott, how about that?
Sure, yeah, the department came in and they said, hey, every time that we do a little bit of advertising, you'll get a little bit more of an increased revenue, especially with the new multi-state games they have with Mega Millions. We hooked up with all the other states and things. They said anytime we promote this, you know, it's just like you have a sale for your business or what have you. And so they said, hey, if we go ahead and we put a few dollars here into advertising, you'll get a return back into the state coffers, you know, to provide the services to, you know, all the infrastructure to our local schools and things of that nature. So when it came down, they said we could do a little bit of advertising here. That means you don't have to cut the school programs as much. And so it was a trade-off. It was like, okay, you spend a few dollars, you get a few larger amount in return. That means you don't have to cut this local school program. You don't have to cut the education budget as much. So we did make huge, huge reductions, but we also looked at opportunities where we could make sure that by doing a little bit of things, just like you would run your business, that it would have a bottom line positive impact.
Just like we were lied to on the casinos, and just like our senator filed the bill to get rid of the loss limits on the casinos and promising the schools would get all this money. Where is the money? It's not showing up. Barely a third of what we were promised. So again, I call a charade, and that's all that is to me.
Money's not showing up, but a third of funding has come in to our schools. That's new money. And what this is what the voters passed. The people all over the state passed this. And what it did, John, is it said we're going to stop the expansion of gambling. You know, we're going to stop giving away these licenses. That's why they're fighting down in St. Louis over the president's license, because you can't get any more. So what we had said is we're going to stop the expansion of gambling by capping the licenses. We're going to increase the tax on the casino boats by 2%, which is more new money for education, which is what happened. And at the same time, we're going to remove the loss limits because we're the only state left in the country that had them. And every problem gaming person we ever talk to says everyone gets around them and they're just a complete joke. And so by doing that, we were able to increase the new money to education. We put it before the voters, and the voters said this is something that we want to see done, and the people decided, and that's what you had.
And true conservatives understand that the social costs of hurting and exploiting poor people are offset by your social welfare programs.
Okay. We're going to take another little break. When we come back, we're going to continue this fiery debate.